Iran, I believe this is all still part of Psalm 83. And so since October 7th, we've seen these events unfold that really bring Psalm 83 to the forefront. This psalm describes a confederacy of the Iranian proxies. Understand Iran is the head of the octopus, it's the head of the snake that has been attacking Israel through all of these terrorist groups. Hamas, funded and ran by Iran. Hezbollah, funded and ran by Iran. Houthis, Assad, Iraqi terrorist groups, all of this is funded and head by Iran. And so since October 7th, and of course before then, but this has really been the head moving into the Psalm 83, describing this confederacy of Israel's immediate neighbors that plot to destroy Israel so that the name of Israel is remembered no more. Psalm 83:4. And that is, of course, what they have been trying to do. And we see this battle, IDF, when you read Psalm 83, you see it is the might of Israel that takes center stage and is the one to defeat. And of course, the prophet here, Asaph, who is praying Psalm 83, and this was this was done in a time that was peaceful. He was under King David, and it was a time of peace. And he was a prophet, and he was looking ahead, I believe, to this time right now. And he was praying for God to confuse the enemy. And that is one thing that we've seen since October 7th is the enemy has been confused. My husband and I were just talking about this. It's almost like when you see one of the old movies, like the old Bond movies, or you see one of the old spy movies or different movies where the hero, the bad guys, they like take turns coming up to fight against the hero. And you're thinking, if everybody would just come at once, you could get him. But instead, they're taking turns, and he's able to and that's really what it's been like with Israel. If all of these proxies had hit at the same time, they would have been able to take Israel out. But it didn't work like that. Instead, they took turns. And Israel, God has blessed them with wisdom and with intelligence, and they were able really to confuse and confound the enemy. And I think God really confused and confounded the enemy. And so as a result of that, you've seen that all these terrorist groups have really been knocked down, and for the most part have been almost defeated. They're still there, but they've been definitely been knocked down, and a lot of their leaders have been killed since all of this began. And so, but we see they're still there. They're still there. Hezbollah is preparing to join the war if Iran requests it, which I would think Iran probably is already requesting that. But Hamas just, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, days run together when there's so much happening. But Hamas was lobbing lobbing rockets or missiles into Israel as well. And so they're still trying to do, I guess, their part and still trying to help Iran, the head of the snake in all of this. But we see this Psalm 83 connection that's still growing, and God's going to deal with this. We know that these immediate enemies, and it may be through what we see right now with Iran being defeated soon, that may be what is needed to really cut the head off the snake and take away the power, influence, and funding to these terrorist groups to finally shut them off. So we also see Isaiah 17, Jeremiah 49, the destruction here of Damascus and Elam. Both of those we see coming fast. And We could wake up tomorrow and see that Damascus has been destroyed. We could wake up tomorrow and see that Elam has been destroyed and the people are having to flee immediately. These are things that we could see unfolding very, very quickly. Today, Damascus was hit, and when I heard about it, it wasn't clear yet if it had been hit by Israel um, going out, or if it had been hit by a rogue Iranian missile. And so it just makes you kind of think about it, because we're going to look at a picture in just a minute of the Temple Mount with the missiles over the Temple Mount, because Iran is lobbing these indiscriminate missiles. They're lobbing these missiles, these dumb missiles. That may be what happens to the Dome of the Rock. They may take it out. That may even be what happens to Damascus. And so it is really interesting to see these things, and because we don't fully know how it happens. We just know God says he is against Damascus, he is against Elam, and these things happen. So that is one thing we do know. God tells us not his full opinion on everything, but he tells us when it comes to these wars, he's against Iran right now. He's against Elam. He is against the rulers that are coming against Israel right now. It doesn't mean he 100% agrees with everything Israel's doing, but we know his opinion about this war because he tells us. We know his opinion about Syria right now because he tells us that he's against Damascus. And so all these things, we're not completely in the dark about what God thinks because he tells us in his scripture what he thinks. And so we see this war unfolding currently between Israel and Iran, and this could very well be the setup for Isaiah 17 happening, Jeremiah 49 happening. I'm really watching Jeremiah 49 because I do believe that is what we're about to see. Jeremiah 49, and they may even happen simultaneously. Jeremiah 49, because they do seem to be linked. Jeremiah 49 foretells us the destruction of Elam and its people being forced to flee. And, have you seen the pictures lately of people fleeing Tehran? They are fleeing the capital of Iran, and it is a sight to see because there are hundreds of thousands that are on the roads fleeing. And that's going to happen in Elam. And I'm sure it already is happening. They're already leaving. If anyone is in Elam, get out of that area where where these nuclear power plants are. Because here God says, and I think this is interesting because understand who is going to do this. We don't know how this is going to unfold. Um, but God says, I will break the bow of Elam. And you understand this is the strength of their might, the chief of their might, the chief of Iran's might are these missiles, are this defense systems that they have, their nuclear programs. That is the chief of their might. And God says, I'm going to break the bow. And that's what they look like. They look like arrows coming through. I will bring disaster upon them. I will scatter them to the four winds. Jeremiah 49, 34 through 39. And so here, notice who's going to do this. God has a problem with Iran. And he says he is going to do this. Now, he could do that through Israel. He could do that through America. He could do that through an earthquake. There've been earthquakes right there. And you're wondering, well, is that a nuclear test that they're doing? Or maybe, God could do that himself. But when you think about the Old Testament, God used, God even used evil kings to bring judgment when it was time for judgment. You think about it, before God saved Nebuchadnezzar, before God showed Nebuchadnezzar who he was, he used Nebuchadnezzar to bring judgment on Israel. He used Nebuchadnezzar to bring judgment on the entire known world at the time. And so that could be the case where God will use nations to bring his judgment. So interesting though, many of Iran's nuclear facilities and the facilities where they're actually shooting these missiles are located in this very region of Elam. And we're going to look at a map in just a second. One of them has been reported to be in leaking even. And they've been concerned about it leaking. So, which could be part of the prophecy unfolding, because if, of course, there's nuclear fallout, you have to get away from that. That would cause mass evacuations. Um, Understand, Elam is rich biblically, and we have done studies on this, and I encourage you to go back and look at it if you don't remember, or if you haven't looked at it, I'll tag it. Elam was center stage, the citadel of Susha. That is Elam. It was center stage in Daniel, Esther, and Nehemiah, and as well as other places in scripture. But you think about it, the citadel of Susha, Elam, Persia, Iran, has been instrumental and key all throughout biblical history. God has used this place in amazing, amazing ways. And so, here we see Israel found that Iran carried out key tests for nuke design ahead of strikes. And that's one reason why they went ahead and did strike, because they saw that they were testing the nuclear capabilities. And Iran could turn biochemical or dirty nukes. And so here there is a threat, especially with Iran feeling, like an animal that's cornered. That's when they can be the most dangerous. So there is fears that Iran, feeling cornered, feeling defeated, could do something really stupid in the coming hours and days. So here we see the nuclear agency head warns of radiation and chemical contamination inside Iran's main nuclear site. So again, this could cause mass evacuations, that alone. And here are their main nuclear sites and the main sites that Israel attacked from the beginning. And you see, this is Elam. Right here is where the Bashar nuclear power plant is, right there.